Aloha and welcome to Inside the Writer's Studio. I'm your host, Isla Allgood, and I'm so excited today because we have Donna Maltz going to share some of her work out of her most recent book. And then after Donna shares some of her writing, we'll talk story a bit so that we can get to know her as a writer. So please welcome Donna.
And I am honored to be here and honored to be part of the Hawaii Writers Guild with all you other beautiful writers out there, creating stories to move people emotionally and make the world a better place and help people get through these times, these evolutionary times. So today I am going to be reading from my book that was just recently published, and it is a memoir of sorts called Living Like the Future Matters, The Evolution of a Soil-to-Soul Entrepreneur. And I've been told this book could not be more timely considering what's going on in the world. If you do have the opportunity to read it, you'll see why. But I am going to be reading from a section towards the end of the book, a story that is more timely now. I happen to be on the board of the Hawaii Farmers Union, and we're trying to do everything we can to build an economy based on what we put in our mouths. So this story was written while living in Hawaii and where I live still. And it was during the Great Recession in about 2008, 2009. And like most people, we ran into some financial difficulties. So we started a farmer's market business. And this is the story, and I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to put my glasses on for this. The story is how to start a farmer's market business. And I start out with a quote. I use a lot of quotes in my book from incredible people who are helping make a difference in the world. And this one is from Alicia Gazette, and she is the founder of Food Tank. And the quote goes like this: "Green business is more than a good idea. It is a powerful, practical strategy for shifting society into a more social, just, and environmentally sound cause." Thank you, Alicia. I learned from my grandparents that a grocery business which got them through the Great Depression was a good business, as people must eat, even in challenging financial times. The impact of the Great Recession spurred Kevin and me to start a pop-up cafe at the Hawaii Saturday Farmers Market. The great contacts I had made with the farmers while trying to get a food hub off the ground in Kohala made the start up easier and enjoyable. Our experience at the Sourdough Express, my bakery and cafe in Homer, Alaska, and my experiences at the Olympia Farmers Market when I was in my 20s would also come in handy for this new venture. By now, our nest was well fortified with sturdy branches. We called our business Always in Season. Our initial vision was to sell pints, jars of fermented vegetables. Fermented foods had been a big part of my recovery, so I wanted to share the many benefits of eating these traditional foods. Besides being a potent probiotic, they are the most cost-effective ways to enhance your immune system. Kevin and I developed a product line with sauerkraut, kimchi, zesty daikon radishes, and my favorite dill pickles. We also used other seasonal vegetables to make more beautiful combinations. The variety of flavors and colors and shapes packed into glass jars added to this ambience of our display. Our vision expanded into a full-blown cafe. To entice people to try the products, we offered a variety of wraps and paired them with one of our zesty ferments. Like the pairing of fine wine to a meal, it intrigued people to try them. We called the wraps walkabouts. because customers could walk about the farmer's market while they ate these delicious and nutritional edibles. We prepared everything we served from scratch and used 90% local organic ingredients. For days, Kevin and I prepped and prepared rotating menu items to go inside these wraps. The fillings included things like pumpkin taro mash, extreme greens, eggplant tapenade, liver tapé, and beef and basil. Customers could personalize their wraps with one or more of the fillings. They also had the choice to add sprouts, lettuce, homemade salsas, and sour and salsas. As the final touch, we recommended which ferment would go best with their one-of-a-kind walkabout. We also made fresh chutneys and guava spreads and baked goods and in-season specials, which people devoured. A favorite was the purple sweet potato quiche made with duck eggs. The wrap fillings, along with the jars of the ferments and salsas and chutneys, were sold in recyclable containers. While I cranked out the walkabouts, my husband, Kevin, was busy making freshly squeezed juices with this handmade juicer. This was a big draw to our booth: oranges, grapefruits, and tangerines, and a handsome man, and whatever citrus was in season. We offered turmeric and ginger juice shots to boost the citrus drinks and people's immune systems. The most rewarding time was when we visited the several farms each week to purchase all the ingredients, building relationships with these hard-working, dedicated farmers. We would buy extra produce and we would sell it at the booths, and this added to the beauty and the bounty. Customers loved it and the farmers were grateful, and it thrilled me to share the gifts from the soil and to touch people's souls. The diversity provided income streams, and we were happy and profitable and customers satisfied. Besides purchasing from the farmers, when we saw fruit going to waste in people's yards, Kevin and I offered to harvest the fruit, and in exchange, we shared the harvest with the landowners. It was unbelievable to see how much food was going to waste in my own community. The documentary Dive, Living Off America's Waste, debuted that year, and I learned that billions of pounds of food were being thrown out in America. Every year, the amount of food wasted continues to grow. Food waste has become an epidemic, and most don't even notice. In my book, I have these little light bulbs of facts and history that makes the book really, I feel, juicy, and people seem to enjoy it. And this is a really important light bulb in the book. Food waste is everyone's business. According to author Dana Grunger of the Natural Resource Defense Council, Dana states, getting food from the farm to our fork eats up 10% of the total U.S. energy budget, uses 50% of U.S. land, and swallows 80% of all fresh water consumed in the United States. Just think about the people living in Detroit drinking that water right now. Yet 40% of the food in the United States today goes uneaten, unquote. Meanwhile, millions of people die from starvation each year, and millions of others are suffering from malnourishment. According to the World Economic Forum, there is more than enough food to feed the entire world. Too many people go hungry every day, while approximately 1 billion tons of food goes to waste. Why? Back to the story. I knew a solid marketing plan and good connections would be 80% of the success of our business. So I wrote an informative menu that highlighted what we did and why. On our menu, we honored the farmers and the ranchers who supplied us. There was also information about the benefits of fermented foods. Educated customers have more reasons to buy. We created a fun environment for people to relax and to eat. Colorful tablecloths and vases of flowers on the tables attracted people like bees to flowers. We made time to engage with our clients. Good food and conversation are always a good combination. Our connection with the farmers and the customers and a solid marketing plan were key to our success. The walkabouts were a big hit. Our pop-up cafe attracted customers to the market. This in turn drove more vendors. And if the farmers market were open today, the Hobby Farmers Market is bustling. It was guaranteed to create it was gratifying to create yet another business that inspired the growth of the local food movement and aligned with the economic hard times to provide healthy and affordable options. Every winter, my dad and my stepmom Rosemary would come to visit us. I was glad they got to see us and our new business thriving. My father's health had been declining for several years. It was tough for me to see this robust, brilliant man in so much discomfort. Still, his determination to live and make the best of his years gave me faith in the process. This would be the last time he saw Kevin and me in action. Seeing us in our element gave him great satisfaction. I cherish the memory of eating a walkabout, scooting around in his electric scooter, telling everyone how good it was. That's my story.
Thank you, Donna. That's just a little piece of a very big piece of work. And as you were reading, I really enjoyed that story. I don't think I've heard that before in your readings. I was wondering first about how long did it take you? Because I know this is a labor of love. The book is how many pages?
It's 426 pages.
426.
But I'm going to show you the book just because there are a lot of photos and beautiful illustrations and graphics, which makes the book, I feel, more entertaining, and it's a memoir of sorts. So, yeah.
And when did you kind of get started? Like you probably had, tell us just a little bit of your process. Like you had an idea or you started to write and then it came to you. How did you get going on this?
This is such a great question, Isla. Thank you for asking. One of the stories in the book shares with you that I'm dyslexic and pretty severely dyslexic, and I got a D in 3rd grade. They didn't know what was wrong with me, and I was writing the spelling words all wrong off the board. Hence, I failed every spelling test, and it was my tutor who finally came on who realized that I would have gotten 100% if I had written them down right and studied them. So I had a very adverse to writing and math. And in school, I was more of a social highlight, well, whatever they call them. And I used my personality to get through life. And I never considered myself smart or ever going to write anything. And then when I started getting into business, I had to write menus and copy for our restaurant, which I started when I was 25. And so I started working with some really, people who appreciated my creativity and gave me the encouragement that, like, hey, Donna, just write it out and give it your personality, and we'll make it work, and don't worry about spelling or grammar. Mm-hmm. And I ended up being like a really good marketer and went national with the company, did a lot of marketing pieces, wrote websites. And yeah, I had a lot of really great help and support around that. Mm-hmm. And then in 2002, I was going through a really hard time in my life, which is part of what this memoir is about. It's very positive and high, and there's lots of facts and reasons why the unsustainable American dream is not working, especially today. People are seeing it more than ever. And there was a time in my life around 2002 where I was 205 pounds, fat, sick, nearly dead. And all my customers at my restaurants, you know, this is years later, were saying, you got to write a cookbook, write a cookbook. And I'm sitting there, me write a book? I don't even follow a recipe. And I would hear it like 10 times a day in my restaurant. And so it's 2002, I'm 205 pounds. I'm swimming down at Mahakona, and I'm going back and forth. And I kind of have like a moment. And I thought to myself, you know what, I'm gonna try and do this, because I'm about as low as I can get. And I know journal writing used to help me when I was a kid. Nobody could read my diaries because I was dyslexic. So having that code with your diary is a good thing. Yeah. It just gets bad when you can't read it back to yourself. So anyway, long story short, I started really writing in 2002, and some of these stories came out of that in 2002. So all you writers out there who have been working on a book for 10 years, 5 years, 3 years. I started this in 2002, but really what I was doing then was teaching myself how to write and to get over being dyslexic. And so what ended up happening after that is I went on this massive health kick. And if you read the book, you'll read the story of how I crash and how I get out of it, starting in 2002. 2003, 2004. By then I had lost like 50 pounds. And so I share that challenge. And while I'm doing this, I'm trying to write this book, but I'm realizing that all the recipes I had in the book that I was going to put in 2002, like carrot cake and obscene brownie, and, you know, a lot of the yummy, even though they were organic, maybe I didn't want to have those recipes in the book. So I totally changed the genre from What's in Your Bowl, that was the name of the book, and I took the stories, a lot of the stories that are in this book, and I just started rewriting the book.
Well, you know,
and
you bring up a really good point, a lot of good points for people who are either writers or thinking about writing. And I was just thinking about this on my walk today, what you were talking about, in that some people, you know, I started writing when I was a kid, little poetry, little this stories, but I know people who start writing when they're 40 or 60 or 80, and and maybe the spelling isn't right, or maybe the grammar isn't right, but that's why we need a village. You know, we need our community to help us with the things that maybe we're not that strong at, but we still have a story to tell. And you know, you started with this story and then it morphed into something else. You listened to your inner voice saying, you know what, this is not what I want to be working on. I'm going to work it. I'm switching to something else. And I think that's really valuable for people watching this to know that, you know, you can change your mind. You can start down one path and change it. You can get help if you're a terrible speller or you just don't spell well. Then don't fight that. Don't spend all day worrying about that. Just get your ideas. I know some people use something they talk into, write it down, type it down. Can you tell us something that has been, through this process of writing this book, a highlight for you? I'm sure there's many, but just give us one highlight for you around the book.
Yeah, you know, I think this is a really good highlight, and I didn't write it in the book, so I'm really glad you asked that question to share it. I bring up a lot of really hard facts and in things that why I feel the American dream has pretty much destroyed our country and the economy and our political system. And I'm actually writing a second book right now, Living Like the Future Matters. It's called COVID-19. It's teaching me to live more like the future matters. What about you? And I kind of reached that point in the second book, which I'm going to have written in 6 months versus 18 years. So that should give everybody out there reason to keep going, because once you get the first one done, they keep coming, and you got to do something with all those words and all those feelings. But it was about 2014. And my granddaughter was just born, who is now 5.5. And I know you're a grandma, Isla, so you can relate to this. And I had just really been in the book writing mode. I kind of put it down. It didn't really take me 18 years. It took me 18 years to get it my first book published, but along the way I learned so much. And like Isla said, I evolved and changed, and you're allowed to change your mind and all that stuff. So my husband, who has just been this huge support and champion, I had been writing some really, really hard stuff, and I was wanting to like give up.
Mm.
And he wouldn't let me give up. He was washing the dishes, and I'm like kind of like having a moment, like, because when you're writing, especially when you're writing nonfiction and you're writing stuff that you're so passionate about, and you start finding out, how many times your plastic goes around the world, like thousands, and how much suffering is, all that stuff. And I'm researching like so much. And he turned around and he looked at me and he says, "You're not going to let your granddaughter down, are you?" Whew. Goosebumps.
Yeah.
Like, who was I writing this for? And this is really important for writers out there. I think, like everybody's saying, who's your target market? But especially when you're writing like memoir writing and storytelling, and you really, it's just kind of like this legacy. I wrote this book originally for my son. So when he said that about the granddaughter, I was thinking, well, what better way for him to know these stories about his mom that he thought he knew or didn't know. And also how I was hoping to see him develop as a human in this world and how to show up in the world, right? How I showed up and how I fell down and, all that. But when he said, "You're not going to let your granddaughter down." And so really that was when I got on fire. Mm-hmm. And so when I think about how long it really took me to write the book, that was when I really wrote the book. The rest of it was learning. The rest of it was throwing away drafts and like recipes or whatever. And kept the story, but changed my style, changed my approach.
Right. Well,
so I think that answered your question, right? Like,
you definitely answered the question. I think it's important for people to hear the motivation. And we're out of time, unfortunately, but I want to thank you, Donna, for, first of all, writing the book and taking the time and sharing your passion with the world, because our stories, we all have stories, and we all have stories to tell, and you have told your story in a way that with an intention of helping others to grow and to make the world a better place. And I want to thank you for that, and thank you for taking the time today. We had some technical glitches at the beginning, but we got it. And thank you for being here on the show. And I want people to know, if they want to know more information about the Guild, they can go to HawaiiWritersGuild.com. And also there's a Facebook page for Hawaii Writers Guild. So thank you, Donna. Thank you, everyone out there. And until next time, aloha.
And I just wanted to thank you all for taking the time to hear that. And if you want to find out more about me, and if I can help any of you writers out there get your story out in the world, you can find me at donnamaltz.com. And just keep on. It's so rewarding, and love y'all. Big love and aloha.
Bye-bye.